Natural Real Estate here, hosting a look behind the scene in the coastal marketplace here, specifically for Jan Juc, Bellbrae, Torquay, so all things 3228. We're going to take a look at the back end of 2026 and what we've been seeing over the last half a year, the last quarter. And today we're joined by Chris, Head of Sales at Natural Real Estate, and also Steph from our property management team, who handles all new business. Welcome, guys. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Now, Chris, straight into it. Let's have a look at the last part of 2026. We're coming into the end of the financial year. And what is it that you've been seeing through the sales market?
On average, if we refer back to quarter to last year, so just to give some context around it, we're sitting at virtually the same median price, which is 1,160,000. So it has differed over the time between now and then, but it's basically ranged between 1.1 and 1.2. Overall, there's been 107 sales, which is still healthy. Now, what's changed mainly is the days on market. So in other words, how long it's taken to sell a home. And we're now at 102 across all agencies. Now, that is slightly longer than people anticipate when putting a home on the market, but it is what it is right now. There are factors involved, which I'm sure we'll be discussing as we get through this. Buyer profiles, very similar. I suppose the only one that's decreased slightly are investors, and maybe for obvious reasons, but again, I'm sure we'll be working through that, sure.
And so as far as the approach towards the property management or rental market, Steph, what is it that you've been seeing in relation to, say, seasonality? We're middle of the year, we're coming into the end of the financial year. Say, what are the changes that you would see beginning of the year to say now?
Yeah, obviously summer is quite busy in Torquay, being a holiday destination. We do see a lot of people looking to move at that time of year. They've got some time off, whether it be, school holidays or, I suppose just end of the work year. But compared to now being in the winter market, we are seeing a slight decline on both inquiries and applications per property.
And would that be normal for year on year?
Yeah, we do see this happen pretty much every winter. We do see a decline in both stock online and inquiry and applications.
And so how would that impact, say, the weekly rent if we thought of seasonality, beginning of the year to middle of the year?
Look, it does, good question. It does bring it down slightly. I wouldn't say a significant drop, but you can imagine with the demand being a little lower, properties are taking a little bit longer to lease. Therefore, the prices need to be a little bit more comparable in the winter market. We need to be a bit more precise.
So applications are down generally a little bit over the winter months, and then price just needs to be appropriate. And
yeah, well, less inquiries does mean less applications. Just because someone inquires on a property doesn't mean they're going to apply. So, if I was to run numbers at the start of the year, we're looking upwards of maybe 200 inquiries per month. In the month of June, we've only seen about 100. So yeah, we do see a significant change in the amount of inquiries. It doesn't mean that properties don't lease as quick. It just means that we need to be a little bit more careful about what goes online, and presentation also is very important.
Thanks, Steph. And Chris, what about the beginning of this year? There's been a lot that's occurred through the, say, March, April, like big macro events. And so the beginning of this year through to, say, now, this current quarter, what have you noticed? What's the big stories?
By macro events, you're meaning?
Yeah, just the events that happen around the globe. We've talked about, there's been the budget recently as well. There was, war, fuel, inflation, some of these matters. How have they impacted the market and changed things from the beginning of the year to middle of the year?
A lot of it is based on sentiment. What I mean by sentiment is how people are feeling about real estate. The fundamentals haven't moved hugely. There's been choice for buyers at the moment on the market. So there's a fair amount of properties for sale compared to 2-3 years ago. And so that with choice, people then start getting a bit choosy. So the supply and demand has been slightly in favour towards the buyers, but I'll talk about that further in a second. But we've had, as you say, those events. Now, I just wanted you to clarify for people listening. I know we talk about it a lot, but it's mainly the interest rate drive, up, down, sideways, holding, that seems to drive this market, the property market. Here, certainly in Victoria, I'm sure it's the same nationwide as well, to a certain extent. Then you've got the budget, and the negative gearing, the comments around that. And I know the budget affects people in different ways, but if we looked overall and just the property market, it's just bringing more uncertainty to the market. But the biggest thing we're seeing are homes are actually selling. And when we talk to people about our agency, the most properties sold in 1 month was last month for this year for our business, and people are surprised. Their eyebrows eyebrows go up, because we're not supposed to be seeing that according to the media and all the reports, but we've been busy with inquiry. And this month of June is looking to be exactly the same as well. So there's lots of transactions happening still. I think sentiment seems to be changing slightly. We've gotten over, as you say, price hikes, and things seem to be settling down. Last week we had an interest rate hold. So we're seeing a bit of confidence coming back into the market now, and that's definitely translating into purchasing.
It's interesting you mentioned the volume of sales that are occurring, which is a bit of a surprise to people as well, because when we ran the numbers through the office, the decrease in the number of investors was notable and significant, but yet that hasn't had a negative impact on the actual number of transactions.
So there's investors in two ways that we see it over the years. One is the investor that Steph and the team will look after, and it's an investment. It's just geared to make money over time, and that's certainly the aim from it. The other investor is somebody that's looking to move down to 3228 in 2 to 3 years' time. Unfortunately, their borrowing capacity has decreased because lenders can't include the negative gearing, and only last week I had 3 conversations exactly the same around then. Now it's only early days, but we are seeing the biggest impact from that type of investor as opposed to your more traditional investors, which only made up a small percentage of the market anyway. So 3228 hasn't been massively affected by the investor market. It's more the people moving down that are going to hold a property for a few years.
And so across to you, Steph, just with a question that has been I'd like to put to you, just in relation to compliance. So one of the things that from people outside looking in, it's difficult to understand the shift in that. So just from a compliance standpoint, what have we seen through 2026 it's been different for the property management department?
Yeah, well, it's always evolving, the compliance sort of sector of property management. We've just had recently in March 2026, a lot of different things have popped into place just in regards to what's required rental minimum standard wise. So every property that we do manage must meet a certain amount of rental minimum standards for it to be able to be a rental. And I suppose it's going to continue evolving, and it's a discussion that I have daily, whether it be with a friend or a colleague or even someone from another agency. It's quite literally everywhere. So
and it's interesting when you think about the work that's required. So again, coming back to that point, from the outside looking in, it's not just a case of dealing with applications, dealing with helping rental providers understand the market, the logistics,
risk
the compliance.
Management. There's a lot that comes into place. It's just there's just more out there at the moment. Renters are being educated. Owners can quite literally go on Consumer Affairs website and get things that they wouldn't usually be able to. So it's a lot's changing.
What do you mean by risk management?
So pretty much it's just what we do as property managers to make sure that the owner is not at risk. So whether that be down to compliance or vetting applications and making sure the correct tenant's going in the home. It's just managing the risk for the owner and making sure that they're not at risk at all.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Chris, as far as if there was a story that came to mind about, summing up the current market and what you're seeing, story is always good just to get a little bit of insight away from the stats.
Yeah. There is one sale does spring to mind, and it's really around the fundamentals of real estate, and nothing will ever change whether we're peak of the market, lowest point of the market. The fundamentals are still the same, but this particular sale that again stands out was the home was for sale with another agency, and this isn't talking about other agencies, just an example. They'd had it on the market for a couple of months and couldn't quite get the activity that was desired by the owners. We had a conversation. We refreshed the marketing because when I first went through that home, it was a wow factor, but I didn't feel that the marketing really created that same feeling as when went through. So we redid the photos, redid the video, and we tweaked the price guide very slightly. It wasn't a huge difference at all. The expectations from the owners were still exactly the same in terms of what they wanted to achieve. We sold this home within 10 days with multiple offers. By multiple offers, I mean more than one buyer looking to buy the property and putting in bids. And interestingly, the person that bought it had seen it online and hadn't come through the home based on how it had looked. Now, I'm not saying that's a common factor, but it was in this scenario. So coming back to what I mean about fundamentals is making sure that the presentation is good, the marketing is good, because we get a millisecond of people looking through the home online, whether it's on the phone, and they decide whether to click on to your home or not. And we had really good numbers through it as a campaign, and the feedback from the owners was we had a process. We had a roadmap. They knew exactly where they're at every single stage, which gave them a level of confidence to make a decision that early on, because it's sometimes hard to make a decision 10 days into a campaign, because you can fall into the trap of, well, if it's like this now, it's going to be even busier in the next few weeks. But based on the clear, concise feedback they received, put them in a position to make a solid decision. And of course, selling in 10 days and a great price, everyone's happy. But it was just an example that stood out because it's from a seller's perspective. I always speak to people and say, look, do everything that you can. Not every home's a show home. We know that it's lived in. But in your heart, you know that you've done absolutely everything that you can. And based on that, we'll get you the best result. So focus on key presentation points, making sure that the price is sensible for what's sold and what's currently on offer as far as buyers are concerned.
So what's the key lesson that you think you could translate off the back of that example for anyone that's thinking of selling?
Take your time on the presentation. You're in competition at the moment. We said that there's a fair few properties for sale with an average days of 102 days currently on the market. We want yours to stand out. We want to get traction really within the first month of being online as well. So presentation is key, and a sensible price guide. As I say, buyers are going to look through and decide very, very quickly, should I click through to that property? Never mind, should I even come through and have a look or inquire? So presentation, price, and again, it's fundamentals, like I said, of real estate. If one's not right, if it presents well, but the price is high, people won't come through. Buyers are doing their research. Buyers have got choice at the moment. Buyers are being a bit picky because they do have choice. So give yourself the best opportunity to get that click through and get the inquiry. But also, whichever agent you're speaking to, make sure there's a clear plan. And because what we want to do as an agent, what I feel our job should be is remove the unknowns, so everybody knows what's happening at every single stage through the campaign.
So Steph, let's just talk a little bit about self-management. So self-management as in, at times you come across a rental provider who's looking after and managing the property themselves. Anything that you've noticed recently about that for someone in that position?
Yeah, look, the main thing is the complexity of having a property that's got a tenant in there. It's not as simple as just collecting the rent anymore. There's so many other things, and going back to risk management, you want someone that's going to be able to tick every box for you. And what's available online for both renters and owners, there's a lot out there that people don't know and aren't being educated on. Just by having a private property or a privately managed property is, everything's changing, everything's evolving. So it's the complexity, I would say, is the most important thing of, what I'm having conversations with clients is they're shocked at how much we do actually do behind the scenes for their properties.
And say, for example, for someone that does approach you who's been managing it themselves. What's their common comments?
Yeah, look, we're taking away that risk. So, we're looking to make it hassle-free for them, and they don't have to worry about that, all that sort of stuff, because we're the ones that are doing all the work, and we're the ones that are taking that risk off them.
Am I right in saying, Steph, when you say risk, that could be a monetary risk, as in they can be fined if
Definitely.
Their property isn't compliant? And if you're managing your own property, you'd have to read a fair bit to understand every
For sure.
every potential fine
Yeah.
that you could get. And I believe that these properties are being followed up by the CAV.
Yeah, definitely. Risk can come down to so many different factors. Just, one thing that pops to mind is if a property manager was to do a routine inspection and see a drip of or residue up in the top corner of the room, something that routine now becomes so important because we've found something prior to it getting really bad, I suppose, to, minimising the risk.
So, Chris, one of the questions that comes up in sales on a regular basis is when it comes to seasonality. We talked about it before in property management, but for sales, your thoughts on colder months, warmer months, winter, spring, summer, thoughts around that for a potential seller?
Okay, so when to sell, basically, is there a better time? It depends on your own circumstances when you're looking to sell and your type of home. I'll give you an example of that. So type of home, it could be 3-4 acres. This time of year, it's going to be boggy. The trees haven't got the leaves on. It's a very different feel, very different look to the home. What I'd say is 90%, 95% of homes in 3-2-8 look very similar in the summer than they do to the winter. So I would say it's more what's happening in the economy at the moment rather than seasonal, and also what's for sale that may be similar to your home. So if there's 4 properties for sale, very similar to yours in the street, it's probably not a good time to do it unless your circumstances are right, I need to sell now. And so it's case by case, but if we're talking overall, there's no better time or worse time to sell. We can look at advantages, disadvantages. We can say spring, summer, there potentially might be more buyers around, but again, that's more economic than seasonal.
So, Chris, what about properties on the market? So if a seller was thinking about going to market, as you rightly point out, it's their timing, what suits them, but is there generally more or less stock over summer or winter? When I say stock, I mean properties for sale.
Yeah. So the Melbourne market, Victorian market has always been geared around put your house on the market in spring. That's when it was seasonal. But again, coming back to, I don't feel it's seasonal now based on the figures that we see. Ordinarily, more people put the house on the market spring, summer. And so therefore there's more choice for buyers and you're in more competition. If you're on in winter, again, your house may not look as it would in the spring or summer. So I keep coming back to it's more your circumstances rather than the season, and make a choice on that as opposed to when we feel we should be on the market. So it's getting away from the tradition of put your house on the market in spring and summer. We're seeing great results right here and now. It's been raining all week and there's plenty of buyers around and we're achieving some great results. So base it on how you feel right now and what you're wanting to achieve from the sale and what your property goals are as opposed to seasons.
And Steph, between now and let's say the end of the year, what are you expecting to see in the rental market?
Look, leading in towards the end of the year, we do see a spike in both applications and inquiries coming through. So my advice is, if you're looking to rent your home or if you're looking to move as a tenant or as a renter, I should say, now's the time to make a decision before the market gets a little bit busier.
So rental applications increase over the warmer months.
Yeah.
If you need to make a decision, good time to make it now, less competition.
Yeah, definitely, as a renter for sure.
So Chris, as far as current market, would you say it's a buyer's market, seller's market? Thoughts on that?
Okay. Like I said in a previous conversation we had here as well, we always get asked, how's the market? And again, I suppose it's if you're looking to buy or if you're looking to sell, the conversation may be slightly different. But overall, the media saying it's a buyer's market. What that means is the buyers have more authority over what's happening, if you like. But we're not really finding that. There are in some cases, but there's normally what we call a seller's market. So the sellers are in front, buyer's market or a balanced market. What we're finding at the moment, it's more of a transitional market. We don't quite know where it's going. And again, a lot of that's to do with interest rates, the budget. It's a bit of an unknown. And so we're getting really strong results on some properties, and others are taking a bit longer to sell. So it's still a bit patchy at the moment, but I definitely wouldn't say it's a buyer's market that we keep getting told it is a buyer's market over and over. It's transitional. So again, we don't know where it's going, but again, I just keep coming to, if the property is priced sensibly, presents well, there's numerous inquiry. And I give you an example of that, Shaun. 49% of our homes that we've sold from last July, so July 2025, have had more than one buyer competing on it. So those stats clearly show there's buyers out there for the right home.
So presented well, sensible price, it's competitive.
That's what we're seeing for sure.
Hey, Steph, so one final question. If a rental provider was thinking about the split decision, do I increase the rent or keep a good tenant? What are your thoughts?
Firstly, I would take the advice of the property manager. They've always got really good insights about, it's case by case. So how the market's going, how many tenants are circulating. If we did have to go back to market because your renter can't or no longer can afford what you're increasing the rent to. But yeah, it's something that you really need to consider. How is the tenant looking after the home? If they're doing a really good job and they're paying the rent on time, is it worth increasing the rent, that $10 to $20, and what that looks like financially as well. So on the other end of it, if you were to increase the rent, let's just say $20 per week, that might look like X amount of dollars for the year, compared to the vacancy rate of losing X amount of dollars on the other end. So we always try and give our rental providers that situation to make sure that they are making the correct decision. But I don't really know if there's an exact answer of yes or no. I feel like it's a case by case and having that discussion with your property manager.
So Chris, there's a bit of sentiment out there about the market being a bit slower. Your thoughts on that?
The sentiment isn't necessarily what is true at the moment. As a business, we've sold one property every couple of days this year, which again, people are surprised at, but it comes back to buyers are buying. If your home presents well, if it's the right price, then you're going to get activity. So come back to buyers are out there, buyers are competing for the right property. So don't be worried about what's being said out there. If your circumstances are to sell your home, look to sell your home.
Great. Thanks, guys. Appreciate your time, Chris and Steph. If you've got any questions, feel free to shoot them through on Instagram or Facebook, and we will always be here to answer any questions you might have. Thanks for joining us.